boys and girls. Welcome back this Sunday morning. We're going to start with our Bible point and our memory verse. Our Bible point says, God doesn't give up on his people, and God won't give up on me. He won't give up on you. Our verse comes from Isaiah 49:8, and it says, when it is time to save you, I will help you. I will keep you safe. Isaiah 49:8. All right, we're going to be reading from chapter 16 of our storybook, the beginning of the end. The Lord warned Israel and Judah through all of his prophets and seers. He said, turn from your evil ways, keep my commands and rules, obey every part of my law. I command your people who lived long ago to obey it, and I gave it to you through my servants the prophets. 2 Kings 17:13. Elijah and Elisha were prophets who spoke for God to the people of Israel, but Israel would not listen to them. God was angry, but he did not give up. He sent more messengers to speak his words to the kings and to the people, reminding them of his love and asking them to turn back to him. He warned Israel what would happen if they refused, but still they would not listen. Years later, another great prophet, Isaiah, was called by God to be his voice to the people of Judah. Isaiah reminded the people how important it was to follow God and to obey his rules. But no one wanted to listen to God's messenger. They forgot all that God had done for them. They didn't care about God's blessing. Good news and bad news. Isaiah tried to get through to the people, but they wouldn't listen. I'll try once more, he said to himself. Listen, everyone. God has some good news and bad news for you, Isaiah began. God is disappointed that you are disobeying his rules. If you change and turn back to God, he will forgive you and protect you from your enemies. But if you don't change your behavior, you will be punished. This land will be taken over by your enemies. There will be constant sadness and suffering. But the people did not pay much attention. That old prophet, don't listen to him, they said. So no one was listening to Isaiah. Isaiah tried even harder to make them listen. Here's the good news, he said. Your God, the one true God, still loves you, even when you disobey. So if you change your ways, God will bring you back to your own land. The evil rulers will go away. God will answer your prayers. God's people will no longer be hungry and thirsty. You will have picnics on the hills and happy days with your children. There will be sheep grazing in the pastures. The Lord will comfort Israel again and make her deserts bloom. Faithful Isaiah tried his best to convince the people to make good choices. He knew that many of the people weren't listening and would have to experience the bad news first. So Isaiah was telling the people, there's good news and there's bad news. If you don't obey God, there's consequences. But if you do, God's going to bless you. And you're going to be happy and enjoy life. Well, the people still weren't listening, were they? God's people wanted a king, so he gave them a king. God gave them a king. They didn't listen, but God still gave them a king. So God said, let's let punishment come. And the kingdom split into Israel and Judah. Kings from other nations came in and ruled and took over. They took all their money, all their house, they destroyed their homes, and the people were captured and led away. This happened both Israel and Judah. Now, if Judah shaped up and started obeying God like Joseph had told them, God would forgive them and protect them from kings of other countries. Isaiah tried really hard to get the people to listen to him. He told the people all the things God would take away for them if they didn't change. God was going to take supplies away. He was going to take their food and water, heroes and soldiers, judges and prophets. He was going to take their elders and captains. He was going to take their government leaders, their advisors, and their skilled workers. God was going to take all those things away if they didn't listen and obey. But he also said all these good things would go away because the people were not following God. everyone would suffer no matter what. But Isaiah's message was not all gloom and doom. He knew that God still loved his people and was not going to give up on them. So his message was also about the good things that would happen when the horrible stuff was over. God was going to bring good things back. God would show his tender love towards his people. God would settle the people back in their own land. Israel's suffering would end. There would be no more suffering. Other nations would help God's people. Instead of taking them over, they would help them. God would break the power of evil rulers, and God would put good rulers in place. God would hear them and answer their prayers. God would save his people. God said to his people, "When it is time to save you, I will help you. I will keep you safe." Isaiah's message got even better for God's people. God let him see things that would happen in the future, way in the future. Isaiah had visions of the Messiah, the person who would save all of Judah and the whole world. Isaiah knew about Jesus hundreds of years before Jesus was born. God wanted to give his people hope for the future. No matter how many bad choices God's people made, he wasn't going to give up on them. Isaiah told the people that God's servant would grow up like a tender young plant. Isaiah was talking about Jesus long before Jesus was ever born. That's because God had a plan, not just for the people of Israel and Judah, but for all people. He doesn't give up on any of us. He sent Jesus to all of us so that we all can have the same close relationship with God that the Israelites had in the Old Testament. God doesn't give up on his people, and he doesn't give up on us. All right, we feel like giving up lots of times. Maybe things are too hard, or we just don't have the help we need, or we're tired and we want to give up. But it's good to know that God doesn't give up on us. Even when we want to give up, God won't. He won't give up on us. He loves us too much, and he's going to be right there with us to help get us along and encourage us because he loves us. So boys and girls, when you feel discouraged or you feel tired and like you want to give up, don't forget that God is there with you. He loves you. He wants to help you. He doesn't give up on us. He doesn't give up on me, and he won't give up on you. Have a great week, boys and girls.